communicate her internal pain, defective but self-aware, frustrated and scared, and we were completely ignorant. It was the moment I learned one of life's hardest lessons, that nothing else means a thing when a loved one gets sick. The flurry of medical visits, expert consultations, and tentative diagnoses that followed culminated at the tail end of a trip to the Cleveland Clinic. My mom and I had just walked out of a renowned neurologist's office, and I was trying to interpret the labels on the pill bottles clutched in my hand. They looked like hieroglyphics. Staring at the labels, I silently mouthed out the drug names to myself in the parking lot of the hospital. Aricept. Cinemet. What were they for? Pill bottles in one hand, unlimited data plan in the other, I turned to the digital age equivalent of a safety blanket, Google. In 0.42 seconds, the search engine returned results that would ultimately change my life. Information on Aricept for Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease? No one had said anything about Alzheimer's disease. I became anxious. Why hadn't the neurologist mentioned that? For a moment, the world around me ceased to exist but for the voice in my head. Does my mom have Alzheimer's disease? Isn't that something only old people get? How could she have it? And at this age? Grandma's 94 and she's fine. Why is Mom acting so calm? Does she understand what this means? Do I? How long does she have before whatever comes next? What does come next? The neurologist had mentioned Parkinson's plus. Plus what? Plus had sounded like a bonus. Economy plus means more legroom, usually a good thing. Pert plus was shampoo plus conditioner, also a good thing. No. My mom was prescribed medicines for Parkinson's disease plus Alzheimer's disease. Her bonus feature was the symptoms of a bonus disease. As I read about the pills I was still holding, repeating phrases stuck out to me. No disease-modifying ability. Limited efficacy. Like a Band-Aid. Even the doctor had seemed resigned. I later learned a cold joke circulated among med school students about neurology. Neurologists don't treat disease, they admire it. That night, I was sitting alone in our Holiday Inn suite a couple of blocks from the hospital. My mom was in the other room, and I was at my computer manically reading anything I could find on both Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease, even though my mom's symptoms didn't fit neatly into either diagnosis. Confused, uninformed, and feeling powerless, it was then that I experienced something that I'd never felt before. My vision narrowed and darkened, and fear enveloped my consciousness. Even with my limited insight at the time, I could tell what was happening. Heart pounding, hungry for air, a feeling of impending doom. I was having a panic attack. Whether it lasted minutes or hours, I can't be sure, but even as the physical manifestation subsided, the emotional dissonance remained. I chewed on that sensation for days afterward. After I returned to LA and the initial storm cleared, I felt like I was left standing on a shattered landscape, surveying the path ahead without a map or compass. My mom began taking the chemical Band-Aids, but I felt continual unease. Surely the fact that we had no family history of dementia meant that there had to be something environmental triggering her illness. What changed in our diets and lifestyles between my grandmother's generation and my mother's? Was my mom somehow poisoned by the world around her? As these questions circled my head, I found little room to think about anything else, including my career. I felt like Neo from The Matrix, reluctantly conscripted by the White Rabbit to save my mother. But how? There was no Morpheus to guide me. I decided the first step was to pack up my West Coast life and move back to New York to be closer to my mom. So I did just that, and spent the following year reading everything I possibly could on both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Even in those early months, as I'd sit on her couch after dinner, face buried in research, I can recall watching my mom pick dishes up off the dining room table. Dirty plates in hand, she'd begin taking a few steps in the direction of her bedroom instead of the kitchen. I'd watch quietly, counting each second that would pass before she'd catch herself, as the knot that had formed in my stomach tied itself tighter. Every time, my fortitude in the search for answers was renewed. 1 year turned into 2, and 2 years...